আমি অন করে দিয়েছি।
Good evening, one and all present here in this virtual Google meeting room. Each and every Saturday evening, we are conducting such types of webinar for 1.5 hours from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Here, Department of Botany, Sheba Bharati Mahavidyalaya, Kapgari, Department of Botany, Government General Degree College, Lalgarh, from the same district, Jhargram, under the state West Bengal, India, in collaboration with a NGO, Drishtikon, Pashpura, are organizing such type of webinars for knowledge dissemination purpose only. Actually, we started our webinars last year, 2020, in the month of September, and trying to organize webinars uninterruptedly. So far, we have been completed Biodiversity Webinar Series 1 with 30 lectures and Environment and Development Series 1 with 10 lectures. Then, we have successfully organized one national level conference on biodiversity July 2021. Now, we are looking forward to complete this Biodiversity Series 2 with 10 lectures and Environment and Development Series 2 with 10 lectures within this year. Now, these two series, that is Biodiversity and NDEP 2, are going on alternately each and every Saturday evening. We have one permanent Telegram group and YouTube channel. I am requesting all of you to join the Telegram group and subscribe our YouTube channel for future information and benefits. Here, all the research persons who have delivered their lecture did their work voluntarily, and this this webinar is these webinars is for everyone. Every Saturday, I thank to God to be a part of this webinar, which is started with Galaxy of Stars. I am Pompi Ghosh, Head Department of Botany, Sheba Bharati Mahavidyalaya. Really thankful to the research persons, all distinguished participants, researchers, students, for their joyful participation in these webinars. Small request to participants that don't request for feedback. It will be provided at the end of the talk in the chat box. Today's resource person is Dr. Nandini Ghosh from Microbiology Department of Vidyasagar University, Paschim Medinipur, West Bengal, India. Today's valedictory session will be conducted by our respected Madam, Dr. Nirmoli Gogoi from Department of Environmental Science, Tezpur University, Tezpur, Assam. Now, I would like to request Dr. Debabrata Das, Associate Professor and Head of the Department, GGTC Jhargram, to introduce today's resource person. So, Dr. Das, it is over to you.
Thank you, madam. Today's resource person is Dr. Nandini Ghosh. You know, madam is Assistant Professor and Head Officiating Department of Microbiology, Vidyasagar University, Midnapur, West Bengal. She is working in the field of respiratory and food allergens, identification, structural characterization, and development of therapeutic strategies. Madam worked at Bose Institute, Kolkata, very reputed institute at Kolkata, and did her PhD from Calcutta University. Madam expertise in the field of immunology and proteomics, molecular biology, and bioinformatics. She has published many papers in international journals such as Scientific Reporters, Nature, PLOS ONE, BMC, Public Health, etc. She was selected as Fellow of Aerobiological Society. She has received P.H. Gregory Young Scientist Award from Indian Aerobiological Society at Tumkur, Karnataka, India in the year 2015. Madam received various travel grants from Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, CSIR, Government of India, European Academy of Allergy and Chemical Immunology to attend conference and delivered lectures at Copenhagen, Denmark in the year 2014. Boccol, Italy 2016, Houston, USA 2017, an online international conference during COVID-19 at London, UK 2020 and Germany 2021. She has received abstract award in two different sections, pollen and molecular allergology in the annual Congress of European Academy of Allergy and Chemical Immunology at Copenhagen, Denmark. So, this is the short biodata of Dr. Nandini Ghosh. Now I would request Dr. Ghosh to present your PPT over the audience. All are eagerly waiting, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh and Dr. Dash, for this nice introduction. Now I am sharing my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, madam, yes.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My today's topic is microbial biodiversity of lungs, healthy versus diseased. Microbes are ubiquitous. From Mount Everest to Mariana Trench, from Gobi to Sahara, wherever we behold, we can perceive the presence of microbes. In this world, we hardly found any space where there is no microbe. One day, I am sitting in my room and there was no one surrounding me. I thought, I am alone. But at the same time, someone told me, no, you are not alone. A human can never be alone. Yes, a human can never be alone. Thousands of microbes are always associated with us. They are present on our skin, they are present within our body. Julia Enders said in her famous book that the inside stories of our body's most underrated organ, that every day we live and every meal we eat, we influence the great microbial organ inside us, for better or for worse. Now, so many researches has been carried out on that microbiota. But what about DNA is present in amniotic fluid and placental specimens, raising the possibility that prenatal lung development occurs in presence of microbial communities. Now, our respiratory tract is divided into two parts, the upper respiratory tract and the lower respiratory tract. The transfer of maternal antibodies and microbial molecules in utero mostly influences postnatal immune development. Birth mode and feeding type are the main drivers that determine which types of microbes are present in the respiratory tract of the baby. So in the first hour of life, we found that wide range of microbes are present in the upper respiratory tract, and mostly these are non-specific and probably they are of maternal origin. Then we found that in the first week of life, these non-specific bacteria are replaced by high abundance of Staphylococcus species, followed by enrichment of Codinobacterium species and Dolosogranulum species. During 4 to 6 months of age, predominance of Moraxella species is found, and these microbes prime the newborn for substantial exposure to other microorganisms which may be pathogenic. And these commensal bacteria, they give their good respiratory health. Besides the birth mode and feeding type, presence of siblings, daycare, seasonal changes also influence the respiratory microbiota. Besides, use of antibiotics disrupt the normal microbiota. When children are got infected, they are treated with antibiotics. And these antibiotics disrupt the commensals like Corynebacterium, Dolosogranulum, etc. and probably increase the risk of further infection by pathogenic respiratory tract bacteria. Besides this, exposure to smoke, repeated infections, vaccination, this also alter the normal development of respiratory microbiota. The host genetic factors have limited effect on the development of upper respiratory tract microbiota. It only affects the concentration of nasal bacteria. In the lower respiratory tract microbiota was determined by two facts, one is genetics and another thing is the environment. So, the stable bacterial community composition is positively correlated with the good respiratory health. Now, the source of lung microbiome is inhalation, subclinical microaspiration from birth, and direct mucosal dispersion. Our lung is exposed to 7,000 liters of microbe-filled air every day. And this outer air contains 10 to the power 4 to 10 to the power 6 bacteria per cubic meter of air. In spite of this heavy number of microbial immigration, we only get infected if our mucociliary defense mechanism is impaired and the reproductive rate of the microbes are higher in our lung environment. Microbial elimination is a steady and continuous process. Our mucociliary clearance occurs with the help of ciliated epithelial cells that propels and throw the microbes along with the mucus layer. Even in absence of any infection, a normal person coughs once per every hour, and during that time it propels the microbe towards the laryngeal pharynx, where it is either swallowed or expectorated. This turbulent act of coughing homogenizes the luminal content of the airway, and this partially explains why in our lungs there are less spatial variation of the microbes. respiratory clearance, innate and adaptive immune defense response also eliminate microbes from our respiratory tract. Still, some of the microbes can grow in the lungs. That depends on the pH, temperature, oxygen tension, nutrient availability. Here I can say that the nutrient availability in the gut is much more than lungs. But still there are few nutrient availability in the lung also, and in lung the concentration of bacteria is also very less than gut. But in next slides I will discuss with you, there are some diseases that increase the nutrient availability, thereby increasing the chance of infection also. And another thing is local microbial competition. If there are large number of commensal organisms, then it protects against the pathogenic bacteria. But if the commensal organisms are lower and it is outnumbered by pathogenic bacteria, then only infection occurs. And another factors are like host epithelial cell interaction, activation of inflammatory cells, concentration of inflammatory cells, etc. Now, the predominant microbes in the upper respiratory tract of a healthy adult are like Staphylococcus species, Propionibacterium, Corynebacterium, Murugzella, Streptococcus, Dolophystranium, Haemophilus, Rothia, Veillonella, Pivotella, Leptotrechia, etc. In the lower respiratory tract, the number and variation of the microbes are less. Here we found Bacteroidetes like Pivotella or Firmicutes like Veillonella or Streptococcus species. These are present in the upper respiratory tract also. But sometimes we found Trophilina pipi, which is not present in the upper respiratory tract. The lower respiratory tract virome revealed high prevalence of the members of Annelopteridae family, in addition to a high frequency of bacteriophages. And the healthy microbiome was predominantly composed of the members of Eremothecia, Cystinostemma, Malassezia genera, and Davidiellacea family. Now, if we compare a healthy lung with a diseased one, we found that in the healthy lung there is high diversity of the microbes, but the density is low. On the contrary, in the diseased lung, diversity is low, but density is high. Now I am discussing point-wise some of the very common lung diseases. First one is asthma. Previously it was thought that asthma is a single disease, but now it is thought, it is proved that there are many causes, there are many factors are associated with asthma. It may be allergic, it may be non-allergic, it may be eosinophilic, it may be non-eosinophilic, and there are so many factors are associated with it. Allergic asthma is very common, where asthma is caused due to inhalation or ingestion of allergens. This may be pollutants or fungal spores or food particles. And almost 60% of the asthmatic patients suffer from allergic asthma. It is a very common type. Besides, there may be non-allergic asthma. It is less common. 10 to 33% of patients suffer from this type of asthma. Where the cause of asthma is different. It is not allergen, but irritants, smoke, cold, etc. cause asthma. Sometimes eosinophil is the main inflammatory mediator, then it is eosinophilic. Sometimes it is not, then it is non-eosinophilic. But whatever may be the cause, the intestinal and pharyngeal microbiota. Now the question comes, why gastrointestinal? What is the involvement of gastrointestinal microbiota with asthma? I'll answer the question like this. So in general, burden of bacterial exposure and increased bacterial diversity, these are protective against asthma development. Although the presence of specific potentially pathogenic bacterial species is mind that here it is pathogenic bacterial species in the respiratory microbiota of the children have positively associated with asthma. Why? Because if there is commensals, then pathogenic bacteria cannot outnumber. But if pathogenic bacterial species somehow outnumber the commensals, then you have to treat with repeated treatment of antibiotics, and this antibiotic treatment again decrease the number of commensals. And we found that as a result of all these treatments and this thing, ultimately asthma develops in the adulthood of that child. Now, adult asthmatics, when they are recovered after treatment, and they are now, suppose they are now without treatment, then also they exhibit altered lower respiratory tract microbiota. That means there is a huge effect of microbiota on development of asthma. Typically, it is found that their lower respiratory tract has enriched number of Proteobacteria phyla. So again, the treatment of asthma relies on corticosteroids. It also affects the bacterial community. Next is COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. The main cause of COPD is tobacco smoke. But besides tobacco smoke, also there are other causes like bacterial infection or fungal infection. It is found that almost 60% of COPD cases are due to bacterial infection like Haemophilus influenzae, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, etc. And virus-induced COPD is also observed when rhinovirus infects a patient, and ultimately it progressively develops COPD. This case is also found in almost 50% of COPD cases. Whatever may be the cause, the symptoms are chest tightness, cough and sputum, chronic dyspnea, wheezing, weight loss, etc. There may be two phenomena. One is chronic bronchitis, another is emphysema. In case of bronchitis, the inflammation of the airway, excess secretion of the mucus, muscle constriction, etc. are observed. In case of emphysema, alveolar membrane is degraded. Now, the relationship between disordered airway microbiota and COPD differs from disordered airway microbiota and asthma. This is the difference. In COPD and asthma, in COPD, the airway microbiota fibrosis or Pseudomonas species. Next is the idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. We know that a permanent scar occurs in the lung, and we call it as a fibrosis when it is irreversible. But its cause of varies. Sometimes it is due to genetic cause, then it is called cystic fibrosis. Sometimes it is due to infection, bacterial, it may be bacterial infection or viral infection. But sometimes the underlying cause of fibrosis is not known. Then it is termed as idiopathic. That means the cause of pulmonary fibrosis is not known. Recent studies demonstrated the association between lung microbiome and prognosis of idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. A positive association between relative abundance of the specific microbial community members, Staphylococcus species and Streptococcus species, are observed with the disease progression. Now, gut and lungs are anatomically distinct, but potential anatomic communications and complex pathways involving their respective microbiota have reinforced the existence of a gut-lung axis. Gut microbiota are extensively studied, and it is found that this gut commensal microbiota regulate innate immune system. It regulates appropriate immune system in the lungs. Shift of gut microbial composition leads to cystic fibrosis and asthma. Loss of normal gut microbiota makes the host susceptible to infection by Listeria monocytogenes, Klebsiella pneumoniae, and viruses. It is also found that progressive idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis shows evidence of enhanced burden of Streptococcus and Staphylococcus species in the lungs. Currently, it is not known whether the accumulation of these species in the lungs correlates with the loss of gut microbial communities during IPF disease progression, but it is an interesting area of future study. Very few knowledge is there regarding lung microbiota, and there is a scope of huge research in this field, but the research is difficult also. I will discuss what is the difficulty of this study. In COPD, which occurs sometimes it occurs due to viral infection, could be the result of dysbiosis leading to altered airway microbiota and disproportionate inflammation. While loss of gut commensal signaling may impair lung innate immunity in this disorder. Cigarette smoke directly and indirectly contributes to impaired innate immunity in the lung by alteration in ciliary function, mucus, innate immune cell phagocytosis, and by direct enhancement of bacterial virulence. That is, enhancement of biofilm formation. These changes could impact the ability of respiratory pathogens to exacerbate COPD. Another interesting observation is that respiratory viral infection has potential impact on intestinal microbiota. In a study, some scientists reported that influenza infection may lead to alteration very less in the lung. But there are some diseases that introduce so much mucus and it gives a nutrient supply. When this bacteria got nutrient supply, they try to flourish. Now another things come into play, that is the inflammatory cytokine. These inflammatory cytokines try to eliminate the microbes. Now what happens? Some of the bacteria, those are commensals, they are weaker, non-pathogenic, they are eliminated. But there are some pathogenic bacteria, they escape from the host defense mechanism. Now what happens? The inflammatory cytokines that select that particular species of pathogens, that means inflammatory cytokines stop the growth of commensals and help to the growth of pathogenic bacteria in turn. So pathogenic bacteria, they mostly reside in the mucus introduced pocket of increased temperature, decreased oxygen tension, and especially in this condition, this is a selective favoring growth condition for disease associated microbes. And this so the community composition, bacterial community composition shifted from commensal towards the more pathogenic or more immunogenic. So what our lungs will do? It will inflame more because it wants to eliminate that pathogen also. And when there is more and more inflammation, that will again cyclically help some of the pathogens to grow. The same thing is observed in some cases in the coronavirus infection also. In older patients, it was found that when there was a coronavirus infection, at first their immune system does not recognize it as a harmful one. But when it recognizes it, it produces lot of mucus. And this lot of mucus has blocks the airway. And it also helps to proliferate secondary infection also. Now the effect of virome and microbiome. Besides the bacteria, viruses and fungal members are also present in the lungs. Perhaps the best known historical example of viral bacterial interaction in the respiratory tract is the Spanish flu, where millions of people died due to secondary bacterial pneumonia after the infection with influenza A virus. The same thing happens with the coronavirus infection also. That's why doctors prescribe prolonged antibiotic therapy to restrict the secondary bacterial infection. So one of the main mode of action by which the respiratory viruses are thought to predispose individuals to bacterial diseases is through the disruption of airway epithelial barrier that facilitate adhesion of bacteria. Again, influenza virus infection enhances colonization, liberating host-derived methane and decreasing mucociliary clearing. In addition, they also modulate the innate and adaptive immune response of the host. Now come to the microbiome. It is found that the formation of biofilm by Staphylococcus aureus, Streptococcus species, Pseudomonas aeruginosa damages respiratory epithelia, which enables fungal biofilm to develop. Furthermore, Pseudomonas aeruginosa stimulates the growth of Aspergillus fumigatus. Again, Candida albicans, the fungal member, shown to increase the prevalence of Pseudomonas aeruginosa. To get the exact role and mechanism by which fungi contribute to a healthy equilibrium in the respiratory tract is not known. There are several studies that suggest the importance of both respiratory virome and microbiome in the respiratory health. But how they contribute to the respiratory health is not known. system development and contribution. Uh, it contributes to immune maturation and immune tolerance and resistance to bacterial infection. Now, what are the methods used in the study of this microbiota? I have told you earlier that it is a difficult technique because first the sample collection is the main difficulty. I'll discuss the difficulties later. First, the methodologies. Uh, First of all, there is very low concentration of microbes. So, culture-dependent methods are not very useful. So, we have to employ culture-independent methods. So, you have to collect the DNA sample, directly the DNA sample, and high-throughput processing, sequencing of the amplicon of the 16S rRNA gene. This is a small conserved region of the bacterial genome. By this method, this metagenomic study can help to determine the bacterial, how many bacterial types are present here. An alternate process of 16S rRNA sequencing is the sequencing of all DNA samples through shotgun sequencing method. So these two are only possible methods for study of this microbiota. That's why the study is very limited. So what are the challenges? A specific challenge in microbiota survey of the respiratory tract is the very, very low density of bacterial communities that are found there, particularly in healthy individuals. So we have to rely on the samples like bronchoalveolar lavage fluid or collection of expectorated sputum or through bronchoscopy. Bronchoscopy is not a very safe method, and a healthy person will not go to give a sample through bronchoscopy. Another thing, the rest of the part is collection of bronchoalveolar lavage fluid or the sputum. But in all the methods, there is a high risk of cross-contamination of the lower respiratory tract sample with the upper respiratory tract samples. And another thing is that the bacterial DNA extracted from the lower respiratory tract, its quantity is very low. So, we cannot differentiate what is the contamination from environment and what is the actual sample. That's the main problem of this study. Still, we studied on this development of standard operating procedures, including careful use of appropriate negative controls at different stages of sampling and laboratory workflow, can help to identify and exclude sequence from contaminating sources. The absence of uniform laboratory practices like sample storage, DNA isolation, choice of 16S rRNA variable regions, and bioinformatics and data analysis pipelines limits the potential to carry out accurate comparative meta-analysis. So this is a drawback of using this 16S rRNA. Now, in conclusion, I can say that the recent researches open up new windows in the understanding of lung microbiota, but still our knowledge is restricted only to a small percentage of the whole scenario. So we have miles to go to unravel the mystery. These are the references. I am thankful to everyone for your patient hearing. I will be happier if I can deliver this lecture in front of you in offline mode, but this is also not possible in the fear of protecting our actual lung microbiome. But I have special feelings about Lalgore because my own immature lung microbiota matures in Lalgore. I have spent first 5 years of my life in Lalgore I went to Lalgod Anganwadi School and Lalgod Primary School, and in my childhood, I used to play in the bank of River Dashai. Hmm. So thank you again, Dr. Dash and Dr. Ghosh, uh, and all other organizers and the audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nandini Ghosh, for your valuable lecture. And this is possible only uh, due to Google, and thanks to Google also, because this type of offline is always possible, but online makes us very much closer. And in this room, there are so many participants, our resource persons, all are here. We hear only through this Google mode. So thanks to you. And this is now question answer session. If anyone have any question and about microbes in lungs and anything, you can write in chat box. Or madam, can you like to hear in directly questions, direct questions?
Yes, no
Yes.
problem.
Yeah, okay, okay. Then anybody want to ask? If anybody want to ask, you can directly ask, madam.
Can I ask a question?
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
I'm Dr. Pradeep Desai here
Wonderful.
from Ahmedabad. Ma'am, Nandini ma'am, the question is, couple of months before I got a pleural fluid, the water got filled in the outside wall of the lungs. So what is the reason? Is this also a microbial action?
Sir, I cannot hear clearly your question.
No, my question is, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, now I can hear you.
Okay. My question is, if in the pleural cavity of the lung, if the water gets filled, if some water gets filled, is this microbial activity?
Madam, go to the chat box, and the question is in the chat box. You can read from the chat box, madam.
Okay, okay, okay.
Dr. Desai already wrote in the chat box.
Okay.
देखिए चैट बॉक्स में लगी
Yes, I got your point. Yes, actually, amniotic fluid embolism is a very rare case. As there are so many, I think there are very few studies are going on in this. But the role of microorganism in this embolism is not very likely. Because most of the cases, their concentration is very low in the amniotic fluid, and we can only detect them through the DNA sequencing. And then also we find a very minute amount quantity. That's why the presence of microbes in the amniotic fluid, some of the scientists told that yes, they are present, but there are opposite views also. So it is although it is a rare disease and there are lots of hope on this.
microembolism के मैं भरेजा लिवर हुआ है
In the last one
वो गड़बड़ दे शिशु थे क्यों या
Pradeep Desai sir, have you got your answer? Sir, please mute yourself, Pradeep Desai sir. Okay. Next
Thank you,
one
ma'am.
question in chat box.
Another question is that pleural fluid accumulation in lung wall is what type of microembolism? Yeah. That's also another question because this fluid accumulation in the lung wall is again started in and actually the lung microbe is very less studied one. Whether in cystic fibrosis or lung cancer, if they are
lung cancer.
associated or not, this is a very controversial question. And
very controversial
yes, and I have got several research, mainly some review articles on that, and which said that yes, there may be some role of microbes, but there are so many controversial views. This is because the microbes are present in tiny amount. And another thing is that there is a high chance of cross contamination, and all these things restrict inference.
Madam, another question in the chat box from Shukla Mandal Shah Madam. She asks that how can we maintain a healthy lung in presence high pollution in the urban areas?
That's a difficult question. Uh, this is also a part of research. We know that if the gut microbiota is altered, we can eat the lactobacillus tablets, capsules, and our microbiota can be restored. But there is no study that suggests how our lung microbiota can be restored. If we take antibiotics and our lung microbiota may be disrupted, but we cannot restore it. Maybe there may be some procedure, but we don't know how to restore the lung microbiome. And pollution is a great problem in India. All over the world also, it is a great problem, and probably no one has the answer how to maintain good health in this polluted environment.
So we have to be aware about pollution and
Yes.
our own health. And again, another question. Small cell carcinoma of lung is curable or not? Madam, participants, please please wait a bit. Okay. One question, madam, from Lokesh Kumar. Small cell carcinoma of lung is curable or not?
If it is detected in very early stage, then it is obviously curable, but it depends on the stage.
Okay, no question. Actually, lung is a very important organ, and we have to look after it very carefully.
Yes.
Okay. Then the next, as I said earlier, that in every Saturday we are organizing webinars. So I am requesting Dr. Das to say about next webinar and conference. And madam, wait little bit. Dr. Das.
Yes, yes. On next webinar, that is lecture to be delivered by one botanist, Dr. Natisen Pierre Nadimuthu. He is Assistant Professor of Botany, Tagore Government Arts and Science College, Lauspet, Puducherry. Sir's topic is Eyes on Mushroom Culture. So, on 9th October, we will meet again for the next program. And another announcement is that we are going to organize one international conference on 25th, 26th and 27th November 2021. So register for the webinar. Registration is free, but if you present there, you need I think to publish your article in book chapter form with ISBN or UGC Careless Journal. Thank you.
Now I would like to request Dr. Nirmoli Gogoi Madam from the Department of Environmental Science, Tezpur University, Tezpur, Assam, for this valedictory session. And Madam, please give vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Pompey ma'am, for
Thank you.
asking me to give the vote of thanks. I really thank all the organizer, more particularly Dr. Pompey Ghosh, Dr. Devabrata Das sir, to conducting such a effective webinar continuously. I am part of the most of their webinars, and most of them are very, very effective. In spite of their busy schedule, they are continuously under this pandemic time, they are continuously enriching us, giving chance the students as well as the faculty members to be active. That is really appreciable. So I thank the organizing department of the botany, all the members, Lalgarh Government College and Seva Bharati Mahavidyalaya, in collaboration with Dristikon organization. And more particularly, I am in this second, the October session. I was there in the microbial diversity of lungs. A very nice, informative talk given by Nandini ma'am. This was a very, very, effective talk. So I was not aware most of the things, and these are really help me to, know many of the new things. And I hope the other participant also able to learn many things. And they have another programs in the near future, and I hope all of the participants will be joining those programs and make them a successful one. Thank you all.
Thank you, Nirmali Gogoi madam, for your auspicious presence in this webinar. Actually, we are not organizer. All of you and all the participants, all are organizers.
You have taken the pain of, in spite of your busy schedule. No, it is also not so easy now to
Yes, madam,
regularly
it is not so
apart from
easy.
your academic works. And this is very effective actually, more particularly under this situation of pandemic. No, so
We're
that's
trying, madam.
really appreciate.
Thank you, madam, for your appreciating words. And again, I am thanking Nandini madam for giving her valuable lecture in this webinar. Again, the webinar and participants all I think all the participants engaged to this webinar lecture. And in future, we are going to organize so many webinars, and we need your help and your presence.
Obviously, I am always there for you.
Okay, madam. Okay. So, in this chat box, next webinar link and feedback link also. So, participants, do your part. And I think no more question. And officially, we are going to end this program. Thank you all. So, good night.